He recently released an autobiography, My Infamous Life. You started when you were about 11, 12 years old, getting into two things, and those were hip-hop and crime. As you describe in the book, just kind of a real grab bag of various low to mid-level crimes. Tell me a little bit about where you were at that point in your life when you were like 11, 12 years old, up until you were 13, 14 years old. When you were 14 years old, you bought your first car. What was going on with you in that period of time?
That period of time was like probably my most rebellious time. My pops, he was on the run for a while, and so he wasn't around for the discipline, and my mom, she tried her best, but I was like hanging out in the street, making new friends. I was, I went from living in Long Island to moving to Queens and Left Rack City. So I was making new friends in different neighborhoods and learning new things. And, I started hanging out a lot, with my new friends, and we started, getting into a little more mischief than ever before. I started selling drugs when I moved to Queens, because I noticed that everybody in that neighborhood out there, they were doing that, and most of them were my friends, you know what I mean? So I wanted some of that too. I wanted to get some of that easy money, and had the nice clothes and the jewelry that everybody I saw was having. And so I started doing things like that, and I actually got caught like the second day of me selling some drugs, being a crack dealer or whatever. The second day I was out there selling some drugs, I got caught by these plainclothes detectives. And they actually let me go. They took the drugs from me, and they let me go because I was like 12 years old, around that age, and I looked at like I was 7, probably like 8. Like I looked at real little and young, you know what I mean? So they was like, what the hell you? He was like, yo, give me that. Get out of here. Go home, yo. So, that kind of shook me up. I was scared after that to go out there and sell some drugs after that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just chill from that. Yeah, but, I was getting into other trouble things, just started drinking beer, started smoking weed, and at an early age, you know what I mean, around 12. Just hanging out real late, going to parties, having sex, just out there and getting in all kinds of trouble. Where I was, just manipulating things into my advantage, you know what I mean? Rob a few people or do whatever we had to do, or whatever we thought was fun to do, to get some money. That was my badass age.
How'd you get into emceeing?
Around that same time, there was this producer from Queensbridge named Marley Marl, and he had put out this album called In Control. And it was a compilation album of different Queensbridge artists and artists from Queens and maybe a couple artists from Brooklyn. And one of the most popular songs on that album was a song called The Symphony. So when I heard that was like the first song that really made me stop everything. Like, whoa, this song is like incredible right here. Like the lyrics that they were saying and the beat, it made me look at rap different. Like, hold up, this is something really that I really want to do with myself. Like, I want to do that too. I wanted that. So I decided to chase after that. Just like a river, I got a whole lot to give, so I'm a giver. Little at a time, new trails are blazing. Action is in effect and always stays in. Yeah.
Now you started sort of working towards a career as a professional musician when you were still like a relatively young teenager, in part because you had these family members who had some connection in the music industry, and so they knew what the deal was. They knew how someone becomes a recording artist. And the first song that you ever got that you ever recorded that was released was when you were like 15 or 16 years old, and I want to play a little bit of it. It was on the Boys in the Hood soundtrack, on a song by an R&B group called High Five. It's called Too Young.
As time passes, I flow with the swiftness, G. Showing you all that I'm with this continuous flavor. You all wanna savor, and those without no clout will have to pay for this dopeness. You ask who wrote this, the way goes Beyonce, and as you quote this, rappers evaporate, flakes we eliminate. Create the great, then I wait as I meditate. For those who can't keep up with the dope rhyme, I waste no time, but then they won't come to return the life for some. So for now, I guess we're just too young.
When do you feel like, as a teenager, or did you feel all along like you became you as an MC? You got past that point of wanting to be Kool G Rap or wanting to be Craig G, and started projecting your own real self onto your songs.
I had to be right after that Boys in the Hood soundtrack came out. I went to go visit my father while he was on the run in California for another crime he had committed. And while we were out there, Boys in the Hood actually was released into the theaters, and it came out. So we went to see it on I think it might have been the premiere night. And we in the movie theater watching it, and I had no idea about movie soundtracks. I didn't know how it works. I didn't know they was gonna play it in the movie or none of that. So while we sitting there watching the movie, the song comes on, and me and my pops just jump up like, "Yo, we got a song in the movie, a song in the movie." You know what I'm saying? Like, we were real excited about that and hype. Like, that felt good, and it felt like I accomplished something. Like. And I really got to see the results of trying. You know what I mean? When you try hard enough to get at something, you know, it feels good when you see some results. You know what I mean? That makes you want to go further.
You had some seriousness of purpose about you. It seems like one of the big turning points in your career is you had already hooked up with Havoc, who you knew from school and was a talented MC and became your partner in what became Mobb Deep, originally called Poetical Prophets, if I'm not misremembering that.
Yeah, that's it.
And you were trying to get a deal for this group, essentially by hanging out around record companies.
Yeah, mainly Def Jam.
Like hanging, when I say around, I mean like literally like down at the bottom of the stairs or whatever, or right outside the front door.
Exactly, right outside.
You had like a demo tape that I guess you had on a Walkman, and tell me about when you finally got someone to listen to it who got excited.
Yeah, so what we used to do is we made this 50-song demo tape when me and Havoc first met. We went ahead and made a demo tape, and
that's good because every A&R is going to want to know that a new artist can record 49 or more songs.
Yeah, exactly. So we made all these songs. It's crazy when me and Havoc make songs. We just make a lot of songs for some reason, ever since the beginning, you know, when we first met. So anyway, we had this 50-song demo, and our next step was, all right, how we going to get it to be heard? So we looked at the back of the albums, and it had the address to all the labels. So we was like, all right, which one we going to pick? So we picked Def Jam to go to first, because that was like the best thing popping at the time. So we took the address down, and we cut out of school, hopped on the train, and went down to Def Jam. So now we standing outside, because, you know, they're not letting us in, of course. So we standing outside, waiting for artists to come out. You know what I mean? Waiting for whoever walks out this door, we just going to stop them. I'm like, yo, could you please give our music a listen real quick? You know what I mean? We rappers, we got some music. We trying to get signed to Def Jam. So we did that for a while, and a lot of people was just like, oh, I ain't got time for that, shorty. You know, they walked away. Some people just looked at us and ignored us and kept walking. But then it's one of these rappers that was affiliated with Def Jam at that time was a rapper by the name of Q-Tip, and he was from a group called the Tribe Called Quest. So Q-Tip actually stopped, and he was like, all right, I'll give y'all a listen. He put the headphones on, and he listened to the music. He actually listened to a couple of songs out there. And then he took it off, and he was like, you know what? I like you guys. He's like, where y'all from? We said, we from Queens. So he was from Queens, too. So he was like, all right, look, I'm going to bring y'all inside the office. I'm going to introduce y'all to some people. And, you know, I'm going to try to help y'all. So that was a major turning point for us. You know, now we were inside. We had a connection, insider, you know what I mean? And he brought us and made us insiders now. Like, that's how we felt.
When I was reading that part of the book, I was imagining Q-Tip, like this is the early 1990s. I was imagining Q-Tip as Tribe dressed in 1991 or 1992 in like African print, baggy cotton pants and a dashiki and all that kind of thing. And I was imagining my image of you maybe from like the Shook Ones video, which came a couple years later, but a little skinny kid in the street fashion of that time, which was more about looking grimy than anything else. And I was imagining the two of you going up there, and what an unlikely pair you were.
Yeah, I mean, you know, our style wasn't too different at that time, because at that time, you know, like, our name was Poetical Prophets, you know what I mean? So, you know, that's like was the little phase that we were going through. You know, at that time, you had this rap group called the X-Clan. You had this rap group, you know, the Tribe Called Quest. So a lot of it was like real conscious rap about, you know, the black culture and you know, being aware of your culture and all that. So people were rocking African medallions and different stuff.
Were you rhyming about that kind of stuff?
Now, we weren't actually rhyming about that stuff, but that was like the style at that time. Like, we were rocking we had African medallions, you know what I mean? Sometimes that was the trend at that time. That was the most popular trend, was the African medallions and like, you know, certain shirts and like African canes. Like, a lot of people had that back in the days. So, you know, we wasn't too far from what Q-Tip was doing, you know what I mean? But we were definitely different. We weren't that style, really, you know what I mean? We would just, you know, throw on some of the trendy stuff at the time, maybe, you know what I mean? But that wasn't really our style, really, what we were about and what we represented in life, and what our actions in life didn't really match that, you know what I mean?
It's The Sound of Young America. I'm Jesse Thorne. My guest is Prodigy. He's one half of the Grammy Award-winning hip-hop duo Mobb Deep. He formed the group with rapper-producer Havoc in 1992. You signed a record deal as a teenager and put out an album that flopped. It didn't flop colossally, but it was not a success, and you got dropped not that long after it came out. You know, you had some minor regional hits and so on, but you were essentially back at zero. And I wondered, as I was reading your book, whether you thought about doing something else with your life, or whether it was always the plan that it was going to be you and Havoc and Mobb Deep and the music industry that was going to be your future.
Yeah, when we put out our first album, and then we had got dropped because it didn't do good, it was like devastating to us. We were like, no, this can't be happening. We were like, why did this happen? And we really had to recalibrate ourselves and really pull ourselves back down to earth, and figure out why that just happened to us. And once we figured it out, you know, it was like, okay, this is how you fix it. You know what I mean? This is what we did wrong, and this is how you fix it. So that's what we did. We just immediately got to work on fixing it, because we knew this is what we wanted to do with our life. You know, this is the music that we love and that we live, and we ain't want nothing else. It was this or nothing. Like, that was our attitude at that time. It was this or nothing.